But yeah, I can do that. I just need a piece of metal and I'll hit the streamer post, right?
So I don't know, I'm not too late, so just again, like...
Thank you for joining us for this evening discussion. I just want to start out by to acknowledge that we're on Coast Salish territory, thank the Coast Salish people, and to just acknowledge the territory, the historical context in which we find ourselves. So this is an event organized through the Institute of Humanities and the Counterculture series that is sponsored by the School of Communication that myself and my co-conspirator Zoe Druick and I have been organizing for the last few years. And we have done a few different events around this question of education struggles and specifically around the student debt crisis and just the changing, rapidly changing landscape of sort of struggle around public education. And obviously the amazing unfolding story in Quebec is a really important part of that. And so and it's catapulted us into a whole new level of discussion that we want to hopefully tonight bring into a more concrete level. So we are going to start our evening tonight with the talks by our comrades who are coming over Skype. Thank you and welcome. And I think something that they're really that we're really looking forward to, and they're going to help us to get a grasp on, because obviously the conditions here are very different than they are in Quebec in terms of where the student movement is at and the historical context and so on. And but we're also really looking forward to hearing and learning more about the kind of organizational forms that have been playing out and being organized in Quebec, and in specifically this forms of organizational forms and strategies that have driven this student strike, and also to think about the kind of long-term form of organizing that it has taken. I mean, it seems like it has erupted onto the national and global stage, but it's been many years of hard organizing work that activists and have been doing. So yeah, we thought we'd really like to take this chance to discuss it in our own setting and in our own context, and think about how we could also build a movement such as this. And so tonight I'm just going to say quickly what we're going to do. We're going to have our friends give their talk, give their perspective and give a talk. Then we're going to have a short question and answer period. Then they have to check out. And then we're going to organize ourselves into smaller groups. And we have a question that we are asking people to discuss in smaller groups and then bring back to the larger group, that hopefully to build a more concrete sort of movement building discussion. And I also just wanted to mention that folks have, this is a discussion, this isn't a meeting, but folks have been meeting here regularly on Saturday mornings, and so also want to, who is here that has been doing those meetings?
Down at the front there.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So these folks here, great. And so if people also want to join in on those meetings, they're right here, so you can come and talk to them, as that's another way in which we can plug in. So then after our discussion, then we are going to go to the Nightly Casserole, wherever that happens to be. We know where it is. And so I just want to introduce Enda Brophy, who is just going to give us some context or background quickly into this.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. As I said, I want to just offer a little bit of context as to how this talk came to be. Some of us were, in fact, in this room were at a conference in late April in Toronto. It was called The University is Ours. It gathered exponents and people who have been involved in struggles within and beyond the neoliberal university. It gathered people from Occupy Student Debt. It gathered people from Wisconsin, and CLASSE participated as well. And as one of the kind of concrete results of that conference, and one of the commitments that we took on, was that we would work to develop connections and circulate certain struggles that were happening, and that we would put each other in touch we would put ourselves in touch with each other, and that we would facilitate this kind of circulation of communication and struggle. And so this is the first concrete result of that, and I want to thank our comrades for taking the time to be with us tonight. I also wanted to suggest that this is a part of a broader set of attempts to get a sense of what's happening in Quebec right now. There was a fine event yesterday evening put on by the BC Fed, which was well attended. There are the aforementioned Saturday morning meetings, which I believe are dedicated to kind of developing our organizational capacities out here in BC. And this is one of those, this is yet another effort to begin to circulate certain questions and develop our collective capacities. So, I have a couple of announcements. I want to thank Eric Lescarbeau. I don't know whether he's here tonight, but Eric autonomously developed a flyer for this event, a really wonderful flyer, and I want to thank the people who who circulated that flyer and who took it upon themselves to do the flyering. We really appreciate that.
And can I just jump in for a second to say that he's also got a poster for the casserole on Friday night. And I think there's been a bit of a cost incurred in producing these too, so any donations will be appreciated. I'm quite sure, however small they may be.
We can talk about that and maybe get some divert some institutional funding for you. And then the other thing that I wanted to raise was the idea that that has been circulated, which it has been to have an action after this event. Perhaps others can speak more to this, but I know that there has been discussion of a casserole in support of BC teachers at the Vancouver School Board right after the event, where teachers are fighting back against cuts at a public meeting on adult education. At that meeting there will be MLAs and I do believe our Premier, so if we do want to send her and them a message, we could do worse than to go there and show them how we feel. So perhaps that's one of the directions that this event could go in. So, having said that, I want to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker will be Xavier Lafrance. Xavier was spokesperson for CLASSE during the 2005 strike, and he is also the co-author of an excellent piece of analysis called Red Squares Everywhere, incidentally, which you may find online if you Google it. Our other participants this evening are Hugo Bonin, who is on the CLASSE Social Struggles Committee. Unfortunately, Rashdia Mehdi is unable to make it this evening. She is at the Rio +20 conference. I'm sure that she is giving the Quebec Premier hell down there. Our third participant is Eva Lone Ponton Pham. I hope I pronounced your name well. Everyone mispronounces mine, so I've got good karma coming to me as far as that's concerned. Eva has been involved in the strike as a member of the executive committee of the Concordia Fine Arts Student Alliance, and has recently been involved in the Mob Squad at Concordia, and in Free Education Montreal. So the order that we're going to go in is that Xavier is going to give us a talk first, given that he has a bit of perspective as far as the immediate history of this strike is concerned. And then Ava and Hugo are going to talk about the contemporary dynamics of this struggle. And as we've said, there's going to be a 30-minute Q&A if the technology holds. Everyone cross their fingers. Okay, Xavier, are you good to go?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Sure. Okay. So hi everyone, thank you very much for your interest in what's going on in Quebec and your efforts to try to bring that spirit of struggle in Vancouver and BC. I'm going to do, I guess a theoretical, if you like, or whatever, overview of what democratic student unionism, democratic and combative or activist student unionism is in Quebec. And that's at the core of the organizing that's been, unfolding and deployed through this struggle. And then you're going to get the really exciting and probably more interesting part, which is going to be more concrete with Eva and Hugo. But I want to start by saying that you have two main currents historically that have existed in the Quebec student movement. The first one is what we could call a lobbyist perspective. Right? And right now, and for 20 years now, just over 20 years, this perspective has been incarnated and embedded through the FEC and the FERC, which is, the Student Federation for Colleges is the FEC, or CEGEP, in Quebec, and then you have FERC with universities. These organizations actually, really interestingly, until fairly recently, have been largely functioning on an undemocratic mode, or there's been lack of democracy in their organizations. They've been largely controlled from above, and so the leaders of these organizations, which are provincial student unions, that regroup different campus unions, will formulate largely from above at the exec committee level some demands that they will then expose to the government or the university and colleges administrations, into the media, etc. So little effort here is being made to actually inform and mobilize the membership as to build a balance of power. The strategy really is lobbying. So you're going to try to produce good research, and then you're going to formulate demands out of that are quite moderate, because you only have, you don't have much leverage. Right? And you're going to present and bargain with the state through this, and your access to the state bargaining table is your moderation, basically. Now, the second perspective is what I've called, and what's been called in Quebec, I think, we've been trying to translate as democratic and activist or / combative student unionism. And it's been existing through different organizations throughout history since the 60s, actually in Quebec. I'm not going to go through the details of all that. But right now, and for 10 years, and for over 10 years, it's been existing through CLASSE, and now CLASSE is the organization who's behind, as most of you would know, I assume, CLASSE, which has been at the core, really, of organizing this strike and leading it. So this perspective says, that we need to have student unionism, right? So students are facing in our society different types of oppressions, but they also have specific interests, right? So the workers, they've been exploited in the workplace, they face racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. But they also, as students, specifically as students, has a specific interest, which is to have access for them and for everyone in society to a public and accessible and free education, right? So education is a right, and it's a public or a common good, right? So students will face tuition hikes and debt, and massive classrooms, privatization of spaces on campus, etc., etc. And so they can form unions and in face of these attacks and to defend, the right to a quality education. They can actually get together and form unions, right? At the level of the campus, universities or colleges, but also the provincial, eventually the national level, right? And so the idea here is that by joining together, we can share, resources through dues, financial resources, but also our capacities, our abilities as individuals and as groups of individuals, and also, and crucially, build strength through mass solidarity, right? So that we can actually build a mass movement, and that's the whole idea, to build a balance of power that actually goes beyond activist circles inside and outside and within and outside in the periphery of campuses, right? The goal is to actually go beyond these circles, these groups, local groups of activists on campuses and build a mass movement. Now, in that perspective, you will launch campaigns and you will hear from Eva and Hugo a lot about that, so I'm not going to go into any details here, but you're going to have demands, right? You're going to formulate demands, concrete demands. Right? So in that case, for example, you have the demand to block the tuition hike. It was announced in 2010 by the Quebec government, right? And then you have a broader perspective also, that you always try to articulate with that, because we're not just for the tuition, blocking the tuition hike, We want eventually to go towards free education, accessible, and, fully publicly funded. And so that through your campaign, you actually systematically are able, in GMMs, in your actions, in front of the media, your own, and the mass media also, you're able to always say, yeah, that's our immediate demand, because we know the balance of power that we can build, and this is what we believe we can build and win right now, this demand thing, right? Based on the balance of power. But we want to say that we have this broader perspective, and at every occasion we can actually articulate this perspective and say, we're facing commodification of education, and it should be actually public good, for example, right? And also, you want to formulate these demands in a way that is non-corporatist, so that you're not going to oppose your own set of demands, in face of unemployed workers or, daycare, let's get more money for universities, taken away from daycare, whatever, right? Obviously. And you want to also articulate that to other forms of oppression, for example, SAS, a women's committee, and different other committees who are also trying to relate these struggles as students to other struggles against specific forms of oppressions that exist in society. Now, how do we defend these demands, right? How do we actually fight to win? There's been, the strike that's going on right now in Quebec is actually the 9th in the history of the province, right? The first one was in '68, and then you have 8 others after that up to 2012, which is the 9th again. So, and that's how we won. That's why we pay less, right, in Quebec than you people in BC and other places. So the idea is that once you have these demands formulated, you actually build a balance of power, as I said. So the power, the basic idea is here that the power of our representatives, be it again at the provincial level of the executive, committees of our, CFS BC, for example, or at the campus level, the power of our representatives who are going to go and bargain with these people is always only that which we can provide through a collective mobilization, right? Without this balance of power that we build ourselves from below, they're not going to make any gains. They're going to, at best, manage cutbacks. Now, how do you do that? Well, again, so you'll have more details about concrete ways to doing that, but the basic principle is that first you have to have an informed student body. So systematically you're going to produce newspapers, flyers, you're going to be tabling, you're going to go running around in campuses and classrooms, etc., right? To circulate information so it's not concentrated at the top with exact people who are, again, mostly by themselves formulating demands, right? You want the information to circulate systematically and all the time on different topics. Now, you also want to mobilize the membership, right? So that, the student body and the students who are our members can engage in action through a campaign that includes an escalation of the means of pressures, right? So that, you can have, well, again, Hugo and Eva are going to talk more about that. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. But the idea is that at each step, people can realize through this campaign, which includes an installation of means of pressure, that say you start with a petition, well, it doesn't work, then you go for a provincial protest and it doesn't work, and then you go on. And as you go there, it might lead to a general strike. And the idea is that through this process, people can actually, identify with the struggle and realize with themselves that you need to go a step further. So that you're not simply making a call for a general strike, which is abstract and in the air, right? Think that people will just adopt it right away, right? People go through the struggle and they realize the need for themselves to go beyond and to the next step of pressure. And now, the most important point, really, for building this balance of power, so that we can defend and fight to win, for our demands, is democracy. Right? If there's one thing that you need to retain, I believe, from what's going on in Quebec and what's been going on in Quebec for decades now, is that you need to have democratic control of the movement from below. So that students who are engaged in the struggle and people who are engaged in the struggle can actually control their demands, their formulation, what they are, etc. And that they can also make their own call for their own actions. And they can always and systematically control what the representatives are doing, right? And so for that, you're going to have GMMs or GAs, General Membership Meetings, General Assemblies. At the departmental level, some places the faculty, campus-wide, etc. You're going to have GMMs who are going to make these decisions, have these debates and all of that. And then you're going to have congresses, right? And then you're going to have, representatives elected at GMMs going to congresses, and it's going to go back and forth between this. And then you can have a real control from below, right? And you get mandate. People who get to congresses, elected to go to congresses as representatives of their local unions, actually get clear mandates. Most of the time, that's the goal. You're trying to have that. And so that through GMM, people can actually, again, through mass GMM, people can identify to this struggle they're leading, and really realize that it's actually their struggle. It's not something, again, which is abstracted and called for from above. Sorry. So that the bargaining team and the media representatives can say that when they again face the people they're facing at the bargaining table, they can say, here are our demands. And this is not simply a great ideas popping out of our great minds because we're so bright and so smart and we've done all this research and we have, a nice tie and, shiny shoes. And, we're responsible and moderate individuals. We can say that if you don't, actually answer to these demands, right? Well, we have tens of thousands of people who are in GMMs on a weekly basis and also in congresses on a weekly basis, and they basically are going to take the street and go on strike, and you're going to have a lot of trouble. So that we're not thinking alone here. We got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are thinking right now with us who share these demands. So it's not just ours, it's theirs. And it changes everything right there. Okay, one last point and then I'll stop. One last thing I want to say is that now, it seems really beautiful, all these principles, right? But how can you actually get started? Well, again, everyone and Hugo are going to get into more details about that. But one thing I want to say is that if there's one thing I realized in 2004 and 2005 during the strike and the campaign that was over a year long before that, and then I'm seeing so clearly again in 2012 because I've been going back and forth between Toronto, where I am right now, and Montreal, is that through struggle, through their massive, collective struggle, people actually change themselves. So by trying to actually change your political and social environment collectively, you change yourself as individuals and as groups, right? Individually and collectively you change. Meaning that you develop new ideas, new capacities. You realize that the power that you're facing in the state is not so legitimate. You realize that you're facing police brutality systematically. And you maybe didn't realize that so clearly before, right? Even if you were an activist, right? You develop new capacities to talk to people, to formulate demands, you develop new ideas around education and all of that, right? So I guess I'll stop here, but one thing is, we've seen that, and in 2004, before the strike, there were only probably a few hundred activists in the province of Quebec who believed that we could go on strike. And other people who would talk with would say to us, you're crazy, it's never going to happen, right? Well, a few months after that, they certainly believed it, and they've been going on strike for weeks. And now they became themselves quite radical, right? And on the basis of that struggle, there's been other struggles that have been led in the last 5 or 6 years, and now, you know, on the basis of that, we've been able to build this super impressive moment of struggle in 2012. So it might seem impossible for you right now in Vancouver and BC, but it certainly did seem to most people in Quebec in 2004, and we were able to do that. So I think that it's possible for you to do that. I'll just stop here. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to have Hugo and Ava speak. Are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay. So hi everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to talk and for giving us the time to share our little experience. I just want to say to give a brief overview. We're going to talk about. We call our presentation "How to Lead a Successful Strike Campaign in 3 points." It's kind of a big title, but I think we will manage to go through that. The idea is we want to talk about information, mobilization, and after that disruption. I think for the context here over there in Vancouver, for you, the more important point are the information and the mobilization, but we'll talk about a little also about disruption activities and stuff like that.
Okay, so, well, at first you need to formulate some demands. For sure, well, we're always granted like full of opportunities with the neoliberal agenda that we propose. Like here in Quebec to raise the tuition fees. So like what is really important is target an issue that relates to people, that will relate to their life and will affect them, so that people can feel they can identify with those issues and they'll be able. It's not like something abstract, and it's something concrete that you can like really envision fighting for and against those issues or for. So this is one of the key thing to find when you want to lead successful information campaigns. For sure, you need through research and people who works behind the scenes to develop like a really cohesive discourse based on research. You need to produce materials, flyers, websites, all those like that will make that information accessible for all and comprehensive also, so that people can relate to those information. They can get informed, and afterwards they can really go empowered because they're informed, so they can go out and kind of spread the word, which is really important.
Also, I think one of the key point is the point of the money. Where do you get the money to do all this stuff, actually? Because if we talk about Concordia, where we've been active in the last year, we had some people who were interested into mobilizing and doing information materials and stuff like that. But you always come back to the question of the money. And I think that's one of the thing that made the student strike successful in Quebec is that the people who were in favor of the strike also had the control of their student union, and their student union had access to a lot of funds in order to fund this campaign. So one of the way to get the money is through student union. Another one could be to try to set up financing campaigns and stuff like that, go to talk with the unions. That's some of the stuff we did in Concordia to get money, but most of it came through the students' union. And it's really important to try to get the student union on board if you want to have access to these resources. So Xavier talked about it, but I think the the information campaign is really the basis of a movement. If every student on the campus is informed of the issues that concern him or her and know that it's going to affect him or her, then is going to be that person is going to be more is probably going to be more easy to mobilize. And so on the point of the mobilization, I think one of the key element is this phrase that we have here in Quebec that said a successful campaign, a mobilization campaign, achieves to solidify the left, rally the center, and isolate the right on the campus. So you really need to we start that by the premises that on every campus you have people that are left wing, some people who are centered on the center, and some on the right. So if you want to have a successful campaign, you need to unify all the people on the left against on one or two issue. So that's what we did on the tuition fees. We rallied people who were communists, anarchists, feminists, and all the people working, considering themselves on the left. So we rallied them on that issue. And then you need to go convince people who declare themselves neutral, who say, oh, I don't have this kind of opinion, I don't have an opinion on this subject. You go talk to them, you go pass flyers, you put up posters, and that's how you convince them. And you need to isolate the right, and so the discourse of the right saying education is a private stuff and you should pay for it. We actually had to have a counter rationale to isolate that discourse and make it look like it was something from the right and it was not in the interest of the students. So you solidify the left, you rely the center, and you isolate the right. That's really a key statement to a successful mobilization campaign.
Yeah, and even more important, you need to get people involved, or like really involved, because you cannot carry such a huge campaign with only, let's say, 10 or 20 people. Like, those people will definitively burn out if they're not able to outreach to other people. And those other people who were not really involved at first, that will, through campaigning or like through meeting peoples, will become involved, and they still need to be autonomous. They need to feel that they're not just handing out papers, actually do really understand the issues, and that they're fully informed and they can act on their own, which is really important. So we had like training camps for activists on like different local issues, how they all relate to more global teams, how they all work together. Training camps in which you had like not only more theoretical, but how to go and to do like classroom speeches, how to speak to media, like all that kind of training is really important for people like to feel really confident in what they're doing, because this is like really important if you want to have people to join and to be on board and to stay on board. Like, it's why direct democracy is so important also, because all decisions are not made from above. People feel really, really concerned when they know that their vote or what they'll say or if they can amend or propose something new, something different, will be taken into consideration. So, like, how to get like a really strong base of people to be active and to go and mobilize our base on like training camp, a really like strong information campaign, and not only about the issue, but you need to know like where to go if you want to get involved, like who are like the resources, like all those, like it's kind of a side information campaign, so people are able to go and get information about how to get involved. It needs to be really transparent and do in the open.
And I think about this idea that people need to be autonomous, I think the best way to do that is through general assemblies or GMMs, whatever you call them. And because when we look back here, we've been active at Concordia for the last year. And Concordia is a university in Montreal, and this year it was the first strike ever to happen in Concordia.
It's the first. It's one of the 2 Anglophone schools at Montreal, and it's quite different from a cultural background compared with the Francophone Cégep or university. So it may look more like a situation you will face.
Yeah, and so looking back, if I had to do it over, one thing that I would change is really pushing for more general assemblies. You need to have people involved through the process of general assembly, and have the fact that the general assembly are the legitimate place where students take a decision, and that's really important because sometimes we had a strike vote. And people were saying, oh, okay, so you decided this, but I wasn't at the General Assembly, so this doesn't concern me. I didn't vote for this. And if you establish a culture of the General Assemblies take decisions, and these decisions are binding for every student. Let's say we adopt the Students' Association budget through a General Assembly. So that way we see that the General Assembly has concrete effects, and this empowers people. And this is what, through this process, through having general assemblies on a monthly, bi-monthly basis, this gives the Students' Association actually some legitimacy to organize actions and stuff like that, because people feel that they are involved through this.
It's really mean like going into something really progressively. So people kind of internalize direct democracy, General Assembly, because that's something we're usually used to. It may be really long. It's a lengthy process. General Assemblies can be really dull and long, but still are really important. So it's about bringing something really progressively, so people won't get either scared or like really, they will just like turn their back over it because it looks too radical. It's about bringing people slowly to something, so they will, if you have like clear goal into it, like you will identify with it more easily and you'll get more people engaged with it.
Yeah, and I think that just to finish on maybe on the General Assembly, I think it's also a good way to know how your mobilization is going. And if you call for a General Assembly and you have, I don't know, like 20% of the students' body that show up and actually participate and ask questions and debate, it shows that your campaign is going well, because people are feeling that they have to speak on these issues, and they're involved into the process. So it's really a good way to feel the vibe, and it's a first step toward more disruption activities. So I think we were going to talk about this a little more. We call it the fun part, but I think it's really important to focus first on the information and the mobilization, and then when you have a large base, you can go into more disruptive activities. Yeah.
Well, when we are talking about disruptive activities, one's thinking about demonstration, occupation, sit-in, strike, ultimately, hopefully. But those are really important because it brings really more pressure on the government to bring our issue at the table if you want to go in negotiation. But they are also important, like throughout the mobilization campaign, because it's a place, if let's say you organize a small demonstration, it's a time where people get together and they all walk together for the same, like towards the same goal or occupation. So it's also a moment where people who are involved, the activists or people who were just passing around, can actually see some action. Because you need to find the right balance between action and mobilization, so no one gets too bored or it doesn't get too robotic. So yeah, there's all disruption, and it's up to the imagination what you can do.
And I think a good way to start is doing small local actions. For instance, during the last 2 years in Quebec, we've seen like thousands, not maybe thousands, but hundreds of banner drops, and people, hanging banners on the buildings of their universities, or going into occupy an office of a principal or something like that to protest against tuition hikes. So this action doesn't require a lot of people. I mean, with 20 people, you can occupy any principal office, or with 3 people, you can do a banner drop. But this brings visibility to the movement, and this raises our awareness into the student population, and it gives something fun to do to people who are tired of getting up at say 7 a.m. and flying all the morning. And yeah, I think it's really important to see the strike as the ultimate weapon that the students have, because the strike requires a lot of sacrifices, even for people in favor of the strike. I mean, it's time you lost, it's energy, a lot of energy that's put into something that you don't know if it's going to work. So it's really important to have a build-up and to see the strike as a means to end, but really the ultimate means to force the government to listen to your demands. We didn't really have anything else to say, so maybe if you have any questions and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we have some time for some questions. We're not sure how this is going to work with the magical, so far, Skype hookup. So we're going to ask people, if you ask, I'll just sort of take a list. But then if people can ask your question, the first person, just ask it really loudly so that it goes into this, it captures the sound. If it doesn't, then Enda's just going to repeat your question.
So try and keep them pretty condensed.
Did you guys hear this?
We didn't. Sorry.
We're going to have to repeat.
We're going to have to repeat it. Okay.
People are going to ask questions from the floor, and I'm going to repeat them to you. Okay?
Because, yes, okay. So, if we can just keep it short, okay, or succinct.
Do they pay rent? Like, is there a rent strike? Is a rent strike part of the tactical arsenal of
the question is whether there is a rent strike that is a part of what you're doing. Is a rent strike been a part of your actions?
No. When we talk about the strike, it's mostly student strike, but we've been talking about trying to broaden, like have the movement taking a more social struggle kind of stuff. And we're talking about having like a social strike and getting workers involved and stuff like that. But it's kind of difficult right now with the unions in Quebec and stuff like that. So hopefully, and maybe we'll explore the idea of a rent strike.
Okay, Marianne?
Yeah, I think I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about the calls for a broader social strike and where that's at in Quebec right now. And also if you could say a little bit about what I understand is that some neighborhood assemblies have popped up and just their role as well.
So the question was whether you could speak to the idea of a social strike that has been brought up recently out there, whether you could expand upon that a little bit, and whether you could also tell us a bit more about some neighborhood assemblies, or if and whether they're happening and what they're like.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the idea of social strike and Eva's around the neighborhood assembly? Well, because the fact is that the tuition hikes doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes also with more increase and in the budget that the Quebec government deposed in 2010. So within that budget, there's also a health tax of $200 for every Quebec citizen, and an increase of the bill of hydroelectricity. And so since 2010, there's been kind of a coalition of students union, the community organizer, and a part of the unions, and we've been kind of fighting this this approach of this neoliberal approach, and so we think now at CLASSE that the only thing that's going to make the government accept our demand is if we increase even more pressure. So we're gonna, right now the strike is kind of suspended because of the Bill 78. So when in August, when the school starts again, we'll probably continue to strike. But we think that we need to get the community organization involved, and also unions. And so in Quebec, unions cannot go on strike unless they are on bargaining. But we think that if enough unions in their General Assembly vote to go on strike, even for one day, the government will not wouldn't take the political risk to find the unions. And if it's really a broad movement, I think the unions have a good chance of just not being penalized by this. But it's really, I think it's really complicated, and it's really a lot of unions, some federations of unions are not really willing to go that way. They rather see a negotiation and an agreement between the Quebec government and the students, even if this means a lower tuition hike, than a victory for the students. They don't want to risk their own money, their own structures and stuff like that. So we're trying to work with unions that are more on the left and trying to convince more actually union workers to go and have general meetings and talk to these issues. Because I think we need also to, when we talk about having a broader movement, it's also about democratizing, having more union more democratic. Just like we have general assemblies, and we think unions should also have more general assemblies and take decision from the bottom or from the top. But we'll see. We're planning a series of conference and talks into different parts of Quebec, and to convince people to go into their unions and talk about this. So right now it's kind of the beginning. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the same thing with the neighborhood assemblies. They all come from mainly since the Bill 78 had passed. People were going out around 8 o'clock with a casserole, as you have seen, I guess. And at that time, like, it was going on for, I would say, a week. And it was really great to see all the people from the neighborhood going out and meeting at each corner of streets or in major alleys in each neighborhood. And those people were, like, for maybe the first time, connecting all together. And at what point, when you're going through, like, demonstration, you start to realize that you need to organize. It's great to go out in the street every day, but it's not like, it's not the ultimate goal to be on the street. You still need to organize and to bring more issues that are maybe closer to you. So we've seen in several neighborhoods really autonomous assembly that started to emerge from from 10 different neighborhoods. I would say that, like, usually there's around 50 to 60 people, maybe more or less sometimes, attending those assemblies. and they have created subcommittees that relates to their own issue that they want to talk about. Mostly they all have information committee that is mostly based on informing the publics on all like different social issues. We know with the Liberal here in Quebec, we have the longest history of corruption. We're going more and more into privatization of our social services. So I think those issues are relating to a large population in Quebec, and they don't have the space to debate and to organize. So I think they have to find that place into the neighborhood.
So people with your hands up, I see you, but we have a big stack right now, so I'm just gonna take it, but I see you, so.
I'll pass.
Okay. You up there, right there.
It was answered.
Oh, it was answered? Okay. Wow, you guys are so efficient. Okay. You're next.
Great. Was it me or?
You are. No,
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm a Simon Fraser University student, which is a Vancouver university, and I'm a graduate student who is also a teaching assistant. And I represent the TSSU, which is the Teaching Assistant Labor Union. Okay.
I have a really bad memory.
Okay. As a representative of this Teaching Assistant Union, I'm looking for strategies and tactics that will help us confront the university and have leverage and bargaining power over the university. So I'm wondering what tactical suggestions you might have.
Okay, we have a member of the Simon Fraser University Teaching Assistant Union, and he's interested, pardon me, and a grad student, and he's interested, the TSSU out here is having a tough time negotiating with our university. And so the question is whether you can share some tips for strategies and tactics that might help put pressure on the university in the bargaining process.
Xavier, do you want to answer it?
Well, I've never been through this. It would be, I'm not sure. Why don't you think about it and maybe, what were your relations with your own union at Concordia? I'm not sure what to say really.
Okay. Well, I think one of the way at Concordia that we tried to build solidarity with the other unions, it didn't really work very well, so I cannot give you that many tips on that, but I think one of the ways would be to get the support from the students. I'll take an example from, that's why I wanted Xavier to answer that, but anyway. In UQAM, which is one of the university in Quebec, one of the public university, the students, the teachers went on strike to have, when they were bargaining with the administration, to get more, they wanted to hire more teachers and they wanted to have higher wages. And one thing that happened is that the student, in solidarity with the teachers, went on strike also. And by doing that, it gave them the leverage with the administration, because the administration couldn't say, "Oh, you're taking the students hostage, you know, with your strike," because the students were in the street with the teachers. So I know that it's really an example, because UQAM is really like one of the most radical university in Quebec. So I don't think it's easy to reproduce anywhere else, but I think it's one of the examples that shows that if students stand in solidarity with teachers or with teachers' assistants, you can try to gain a lot from that. And I think that there was also a strike this fall at McGill with the MUNACA, which is the support staff, the non-academic staff. And they also they went on strike also and built a lot of links with the students and with the teachers, and that gave them a lot of leverage also with the university towards the administration.
And when we look at MINACA, they were also doing a lot of direct action that was closely related to the administration. So let's say the president was on the board of one of the hospitals they wanted to build. So one day, because they had an injunction and they were not allowed to picket anymore in front, they've been to the hospital in construction and they've picketed there. So we can look into like direct action that are closely related to put pressure on the administration. Also, if you have like a strong base of TA that are involved into it.
I think I might just want to add, building on what Eva and Hugo just said, that in 2008 we went on strike at York University, QB 3903, the TA and RA contract faculty there, and one of the big things that we missed during that strike, and we got legislated back to work basically, so it was a big defeat. One thing that happened is that we were not able to actually secure the support of the students, like the student population, the student body at York. But one thing I think the main mistake is that we did not go for an escalation of pressure. Obviously it's different in the labor movement, right? You have bargaining, rhythms, if you like, are different. But you can still go and you need to go and have a campaign before you actually go and threaten to go on strike, right? And that could be in the media, but that should also be on campuses and talking to students, and making sure that probably it's not going to happen the same way as Hugo described in UQAM, when they actually went all of them on strike. You're not going to expect that. But, to have rally and so when they talk to the media, most students can show support, etc., because they're aware of the issues. And maybe one of the things that you could say, potentially, and I don't know, I'm not in Vancouver, I'm not in the context of Simon Fraser, but to be able to systematically relate your own struggles and your own demand as building, a better education, a better job for yourself, better education for themselves, and try to make some link with, the struggles that are being led in Quebec this year and for the last 50 years basically.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So at the two biggest universities in Vancouver, UBC and SFU, our student unions. Should I just be louder? Okay.
Just
okay.
short.
Okay. Our student unions are very conservative and are not going to support us. What are we going to do about it, or what can we do about it?
The two biggest universities out here, SFU and UBC, we actually are saddled with two really conservative student unions. And the question is, what do we do? Given that
I think there's two things here. One thing is how to take control of your student union, and the other one is and that is working through departmental and faculty students association. I think everybody's going to talk more about that. But how to take back your student union? It's not easy, that's for sure. But I think generally, well, in Quebec, most of the student union have in their bylaws stuff like if you have a petition signed by, let's say, 300 people, you can have a special general meeting. And if you reach quorum, so if enough people show up, then you can, decisions made at this general meeting are binding. So let's say the executive of your students association is really conservative and doesn't want to get involved in political stuff. You can try to have your information campaign, and that's actually taking back the control of your students association, your student union, could be a really good practice for an information and mobilization campaign. So you need to have your information campaign and make your demands and stuff like that, and then have people making flyers, website, whatever, having a in and have people go make other people sign a petition to have this special general meeting. And then you have this special general meeting when you talk and you try to convince people who are here that you should adopt whatever. I don't know. Depends on your demand. But let's take an example. The TAs at Simon Fraser. You have a petition to have a general assembly to say that the students support the teacher's assistant in their bargaining with the administration. So even if their executive is against the teachers' union, the teachers' assistant union, they still have to defend the position of the SGM. And if in your bylaws you don't have anything like that, then I suggest you can try lobbying the executive and stuff like that. But usually you can also try to have new bylaws to make your association more democratic. It takes a lot of time, it's not easy, but in the end it could be really useful to actually oppose. If you have right-wing people on the executive, you still can do something about it.
Yeah, and
sorry.
Yeah, and if we want to also talk about those students' unions, for me, they are really problematic because they are so centralized and they really work on a government-based model. It's actually you go and you elect someone and they don't give a shit about you after that. Yeah. So I feel either you can bypass more decentralized unions and go directly to departmental or faculty student union. It's easier in a way if you're directly involved in your own department or faculty because you used to know people, or maybe it's closer. You can really touch base on issues that are directly related to the people. Let's say in fine arts, it was more easy to mobilize within the fine arts department because there are some points that are pretty common to us. So you can mobilize on those issues or on those points of just how to get people. Some will go with a more rational discourse, some other will go with something more sentimental. So you can find more adequate arguments when you go into a smaller department or faculty. And after you don't need to deal with a really, really large student body that it's clearly not well represented, but those people think they are doing a good representation. So it's really easier if you go either directly by department, by faculty, and even there, if you want to get into those executive committee, it can be easier, and the workload is not as dramatic as when you run a big centralized unions.
If I may just really quickly jump on that, I think that Evan, you actually said the most important. But we've been trying to think about that also in Toronto, right? Because we're facing some of the very similar problems that you are facing in Vancouver. So think that most of the things, departmental level, be really creative, go at every level, probably at even we're gonna have to work, with CFS people and go to services and work at every level. One way may be it's gonna be hard, right? But one good thing I think Hugo was touching on that, but forming campus mobilizing committee so that you can actually network the different efforts at the different, faculties and departments, right, is really a great thing. So you can go back together and debrief and say, this worked, this didn't work, this is a good idea, this is bad, etc. But also, we've been trying in Toronto, with limited success because that's summer right now, but trying to form a regional, network too. So, or citywide, right? So that, people from, so UBC, Simon Fraser, and different colleges are trying to mobilize and also exchange the same kind of idea, and eventually maybe trying to network different regions at the provincial level.
And you are next, but I also wanted to ask if what kind of, because I have 2 more people on the, you on the stack, and I just want you to ask how their energy is, yeah? Or time or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, we have a few more people in the question stack, but first we wanted to ask how you're doing as far as your energies, your other commitments, how long you can stay with us.
Well, it's really hot in Montreal and we're sweating, but heard that. So no problem.
In Toronto, it's even hotter.
Don't complain.
Nothing to do.
I have a question about the role of departmental student unions. We obviously have them out here as well, but one of the things that that I've heard is that they've actually been very important vehicles for organizing this strike, and I'm wondering whether you could speak and describe a little bit more the role that departmental student unions have taken, or departmental student associations have taken in the organization of the strike and various mobilizations.
Okay, so actually what is really important is also that all those departmental or faculty have their own bylaws, their own set of bylaws, and they're pretty, like, let's say for Concordia and for Université de Montréal, they do have centralized unions, but they also are autonomous as department or faculty. So they usually have General Assembly. When there is no strike, they organize through General Assembly, which kind of give them a plus to start with, because you usually you need to outreach to less people to have to reach quorum. You can talk about specific issues. You talk about the budget, like kind of other more day-to-day activities that go with departmental association. So this is why it's because there's already a culture of General Assembly within the department, maybe way more than into centralized student unions, because it doesn't make really sense to have a General Assembly for 30,000 people. But let's say when you have like smaller department of 500, 600, 1,000 people, it gets really more feasible to have General Assembly to mobilize people, because they usually follow kind of the same academic courses, so it's cohort that know each other. It makes it easier. Do you want to add something?
And yeah, just one thing. It's really more easy also to mobilize, I don't know, students from women's studies or philosophy than to go mobilize people from business. People from business are enemies. So it's easier when you have like a big student association that is supposed to represent people from women's studies and people from the business department. It's really hard to work with that kind of thing. So if you go and you go to the students' union of the Department of Philosophy, History, Geography, whatever, then it's really easier, because those people those programs are living the commodification of education, and so it's really their programs that are easier to mobilize. So it's kind of a rational thing to invest more energies into small departments that are more susceptible to, more likely to listen to you, than to try to mobilize everybody, but like end up trying to mobilize people who are doing their MBAs and stuff like that.
My question is, what role is the media? How do you connect with the media? And the second question is, what role did we have Asian Student Association, African Arab Student Association, and also religious like Muslim, Jewish, and so on. Did they participate in the protest, or did they become part of the business students?
Okay, there are a couple of questions here. The first is, I think, to describe your relationship with the media, which has obviously been a critical part of your organizing. And the second is a question about the role that various student associations of different ethnicities have played within this organization, within these mobilizations. And various religious student associations. Have they joined the mobilization, or have they been on the side of the business students?
Xavier, do you want to talk about the media? Or
yeah, I can try to talk about the media, I guess. I was a spokesperson in 2005. So I guess I should try to say something about this. The first thing that I guess is important is that we have our own media, right? And we have our own newspapers and flyers, and so we need to control our own information and really rely on our own capacities to inform our student body, our members, ourselves, right? And then after that, being a spokesperson for an organization of like CLASSE in 2005, even more so than maybe today in CLASSE, can be difficult, stressful sometimes, because you actually have to face media who are going to systematically try to stigmatize well, yourself as an individual, but mostly the organization also, right? In 2005, the issue of violence was systematically raised by the media because the government was trying to exclude us from the bargaining table, and systematically they would use this issue of violence. Now, it was finally largely, well, partly solved in 2012. The spokesperson, again, the different people, their spokesperson from CLASSE have been able to actually deal with the problem by saying, we're going to have, you know, Congress on that, and they're going to decide what's exactly our position. And it turned out that the position that came out of a Congress discussion that they had on it was really brilliant and really good, saying that we're going to condemn, you know, physical violence on person and people, etc. But we're going to go and support civil disobedience, because we've been doing that in the student movement, but also a lot of people throughout the world and throughout history, last 2 centuries, you know, whatever, have been using that systematically. But it's hard because you have to actually deal with these things that they want you to say, but you're not allowed necessarily to say that, because you're not speaking for yourself. And it's really important for the same reason that you're not going to simply speak for yourself while you're facing the bargaining team of the state, of the government, right? So you have this tension, you know. But you have, so the last thing maybe I should say is that you need to have solid research. And you need to have people around the people who are spokesperson who are going to be able to debrief with them, deal with all the demands for interviews, you know, that are being sent daily, on a daily basis, you know, so that you're not isolated, right? So you don't want to be isolated as an individual. You want to have a team around you who's going to feed you with, you know, numbers, ideas, remind you of what the Congress's decisions were, Congress's mandates, etc. But also you don't want to be isolated in the sense that you actually are directly connected to the Congress and through the JMN and the base, so that you never speak simply for yourself.
Okay.
As for ethnicity, I mean, it's a really difficult question to answer. We have seen and can make some critique about how this student movement is mainly white dominated. We also have like position from more feminist perspective also that we can critique the movement. We haven't really, the movement as a whole, haven't really made any clear demands or means to inclusion for ethnicity. It's more, it seems it's always topics that kind of get delayed for another time. when we'll have a win, or it becomes like ethnicity and women issues always become a second order topic. You need like to get things going first, and after, if you have some time left, you'll go into those issues. But definitely they should be more on the forefront, and they should all work together. They're all part of the same system of nation. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, like, to get closer to minorities, to have a more mediatic like discourse also, like in the media. It's not a question that has been raised a lot. It's more into the underground, more activist sphere that we've seen those critics, or that those issues have been brought. We can say that CLASSE have voted for anti-racist. They have an anti-racist mandate, but we don't see much of it. Like in the outside, it's more a nice principle on paper, but still it's always good to have it so we can bring it back in Congress and bring back, like, to say that we need to have this mandate being respected. But there's a lot more that needs to be done in those topics, like for minorities, women's studies, and
yeah, I just thought a good critical analysis on the question of the strike and race is a text by, I think it's William Prosper. It's the Quebec student strike and minorities, something like that. If you Google it, I'm pretty sure you'll find it. And for the religious question, it's been pretty much absent of the map. I know that in Concordia, the Muslim Students Association was kind of supportive of the strike and showed it like a symbolic support. But it's really, I couldn't say for any other places what has been playing between different religious groups and the Students Association. So it's really kind of a empty field right now.
Danielle.
I'm wondering if you've had any issues or concerns with snitching during the Congress on violence. If problems with snitching came up, how the discussion might have lent to solidifying the left. But just any problems with snitching to the police.
On the assemblies?
Yeah, if it was brought up during General Assembly.
Okay, the question was whether you have had problems with your assemblies being infiltrated or being reported back on to forces that are organizing against you during the course of this mobilization. Is that?
Okay, well, the students opposed to the strike or anti-strike or in favor of pro-hike, stuff like that, they're a member of the General Assembly, so they have the right to show up, and they're not really infiltrated.
They're not infiltrated at all, and we all deserve to go and stand up for what we think is right in General Assembly. That it's a place to go and to have debates. So, yeah, they're not infiltrators.
And the students on the right have been, I think for the first time in the Quebec student strike, there have been a lot organized, and the media gave them a lot of attention. Also, they were not that much organized. I mean, they had a Facebook group with 3,000 people, but that's pretty much it. And when they did two demonstrations, I think that the biggest one, there were around 40 people. So it gives you an idea of their capacity of mobilization. And on the day before, we had a demonstration with 200,000 people. So kind of showed the power to get people out in the street. But anyway, So the students anti-strike were present in the General Assemblies, and they were connecting with different campuses to share information. I've seen a report about police being present into one or two General Assemblies, but it was because there have been threats of people bringing guns and shooting everybody in the place. So it was not to gather intelligence or stuff like that. And no, I mean, the government knows that he knew that we were going to launch this strike, and because we told him we're pretty much open on what are our intentions and what we want to do. So, and sometimes when, I don't know, people from the administration or stuff like that were coming to General Assemblies, the General Assembly can choose to exclude anybody that's not a member of the student union. So let's say the principal came into the General Assembly to spy on us or do something like that. Maybe the General Assembly could choose to ask him to leave, and he would eventually leave. So it's not really a problem. I think one of the strengths of the movement is actually its transparency, and the fact that we, every step of the way, we declare what are our intentions and what we are doing and stuff like that.
I guess, but maybe quickly we could add, it's true that in the GMMs it's not the case, but hasn't there been cases through action like office occupations like last spring, not of this year but 2011, some actions took place, right? And months after that, police used information on these actions to actually arrest at their houses or on their way to work or whatever people, and like targeted individuals who are really, really active in this movement. And now we'll see it again with, different activists like 2 weeks ago just before they got on TV, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was me in 2011. They were trying to kind of decapitate the movement and arrest people before the strike happened. It didn't really work, but they did it anyway.
We're still there.
I'm just wondering, as we grow the student movement here in BC, whether it's possible to establish ongoing communication with CLASSE, whether it's possible to identify one or two people within the organization that we can have ongoing communication with. And also, second question, whether we can share some strategy and tactics. For example, could we get a copy of the General Assembly model that you use currently?
Okay, so there are a couple of questions. One was, as we develop our collective capacities in our student movement out here, whether it would be possible to develop kind of ongoing communication with members from CLASSE during that process. And the second one was, sorry, I have a terrible one.
Just get a copy of the General Assembly model, so we actually understand how the General
If we could get a copy of the General Assembly model, or get a kind of a better description of the General Assembly model, so we get a better, kind of more concrete sense of how that's being put into action.
Okay, as for CLASSE, of course, there's no problem. I'm not on the social struggle committee, I'm on the information committee, but whatever. There's a social struggle committee at CLASSE who's in charge of making all these links between students association and students around the world. So you can maybe, and could give you the info on how to contact us after that. But you can maintain it. Don't hesitate if you have any questions or if you need help with anything. We'll try to help you as the best we can. And one thing we're kind of joking about it in congresses, but I think it's kind of serious in a way. We're saying that we should spread the strike now that the Quebec strike has been like the largest and the longest. We should spread the strike to the rest of Canada. And I think that a lot of people are interested in doing that and sharing their knowledge and helping any way we can. And as for General Assembly, yeah, there's a lot of bylaws, different bylaws and procedures, but we can try to send you a copy of one or two to see how things work and stuff like that. But it kind of looks like Robert's Rule, but more, I think, more democratic and more easy to access for people.
Shouldn't you maybe give like the whole website with different documents that are there? There's one like 22 questions on the general strike, also these kinds of documents, right?
Yeah, the website is top.hike.ca, so it has updates on the strike and also all the materials and stuff like that. It's not really up to date, but you'll find more what we use mainly to mobilize at Concordia and stuff like that during the week.
It's really related to the Quebec situation, but it gives a good sense of like what you need to have in your possession before to start. But really, even more important than starting a campaign on a specific issue, the main issue maybe you should focus on is it's bringing back direct democracy. General Assembly, because without those cues, like even if you have like the best intention in the world, maybe it would work for a certain time, but like what makes us strong here, it's really based on like the way we do organize, and it's through direct democracy, and it's through like general assemblies, and it's without letting too many powers to a small minority of people, and it's taking the power to us and going where we want to go. So like this could be a great campaign, how to bring General Assembly and direct democracy. It would be a first really important step.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have people who want to ask questions, so we're wondering whether you're okay with taking another one or two questions.
1 or 2 is okay for us.
Okay.
Okay, so we've maxed out. I have the you in the striped shirt.
One question has already been asked.
Sorry. Oh, okay. And then you with your hand up.
So my question regarding mobilizing people in the center and other allied groups that aren't exactly full left and as radical as, say, those of us that are here. My question is along the lines of how do you maintain momentum after you've already mobilized these people? A couple of tactics and such, or advice, just so that you can keep things going, given how long it can take to get, negotiations going.
Okay, so the question was with respect to mobilizing the people in the center that you were referring to before. And the question was whether you can offer a couple of pieces of advice as to tactics in order to maintain momentum, and I presume keeping them involved during the mobilizations.
I think Xavier kind of answered that. Is the fact that once you rally the center to your campaign, through the campaign, through the demonstration, through the General Assembly, people radicalize themselves. And they, because on the campus where the strike has been successful, and people are on strike since now the mid-February, there's no more people on the center. All the people in the center are now left, are on the left, because you don't screw up your whole semester if you're not sure about the strike. You get convinced and you get the process, and then eventually you just decide that it's worth it to continue the struggle. So the momentum, and to keep the momentum during the strike, well, eventually what happened is that we didn't have, and when I say we, it's kind of class, is the people were autonomous and were organizing disruption activities by themselves. And that's what I ever mentioned is you don't want people just to follow you and wait for the call of the executive of the top. Is that eventually people just get autonomous and start doing stuff by their own, and that's how the strike can last that long. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yes.
That's a yes.
So we're just going to take one more. I know a lot of people have been waiting, but we don't have time. And then after this is done, then we can also reconvene and discuss what we're going to do next.
Okay, I have two questions. I hope that's okay.
One question.
Okay. Well, I guess there's a question about, I think in Vancouver, at least my sense of this, because I'm still new here, in Vancouver, historically, there's been a challenge about solidifying the left. That's actually been a challenge that we face, and I think we still face that challenge. You know, about not letting all the things that the little disagreements and debates that we have become so sharp that we can't unite about the 95% of stuff that we do agree on. So I want to know, how did you get to that point where you could formulate demands that everybody could agree on within the left that just currently existed at the time that you started organizing? So I'll leave out the other question.
Okay, so the question refers to the fact that I guess according to some, we have had problems on the left here in Vancouver as far as uniting behind certain demands, certain forms of action, certain strategies, etc. And the question, as far as I understand or remember it, is how have you managed to maintain unity on the left, given that this has been essential to the success of the strike thus far? How have you managed to achieve that?
I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to run. Thank you so much. I think on that question you should talk about force critique and mise en demeure have been really crucial to that. Okay, have a good night everyone, and thank you.
I mean, like, it's sort of like when we were talking about unifying the left, it's more about people who will actively get involved into the movement, because we cannot say that in Quebec we have a unified left. We have, like, just Xavier was talking about more lobby group, like the student association that we've talked before, FERC and FEC, who are like totally different from what we have been talking about since the beginning of this conversation. So to say that we don't even know how to solidify the left, we know we were all going for not so common goal. I mean, at CLASSE, we were talking, like, for CLASSE, we're talking more about free education. And then we soften the discourse into a freeze, but we know that the other student association are for freeze, but they're not totally against the hike. So we all come from different perspectives also. I feel that it's more in the media, the discourse in the media, that we have to look more united. The fact also that they have stand for going into bargaining all together, but we're not like so united.
Yeah, but I think one thing also that's important in Quebec is the context. And I would say that actually to have a successful strike campaign, you need to have three things. The first one being the culture of general assemblies and stuff like that. The second is being the preparation and the campaign and all that stuff. And the third one being the context. In Quebec, we have a context with the government has been in power since when the Charest government has been in power since 9 years. There's accusation of corruption, stuff like that. The last budgets have been really anti-social, neoliberal, so a lot of the left felt the attack. So the fight against tuition hikes became kind of this rally point against the government. And that's how we managed to unify the left. Because some people on the left, well, most people on the left are against tuition hike, but a lot of them are not in favor of, let's say, disruption activities, and some consider that we shouldn't go on strike against tuition hikes. But because of the context, because of the hate, I would say, against the government, the fight against tuition hike has become a fight against the Charest government. And that's how a lot of people actually formed their we kind of found a unity on that basis. But yeah, I think you really have to take into account the context of this campaign, because it wouldn't have been this kind of stuff wouldn't happen if it was not 9 years of power with Charlie and corruption and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.